there was a place where only dwarfs lived. Long ago, before roads and metal, there was a hidden land deep inside the forest. It was called Langa. Only dwarfs lived there, short people with strong arms and sharp minds. They built their homes under the roots of big trees. They farmed low crops, hunted small animals, and shaped tools from stone, bone, and wood. Their stories told only of their kind. No one in Langa had ever seen a tall human. They didn't even believe such a thing could exist. But in their old folk tales, there were stories of giants who lived far above the hills, tall ones who could see over mountains and speak to thunder. No one had ever seen one. It was just a story. Until the day Akilo went to the river. He was alone carrying his small calabash and sponge. He walked through the thick morning mist. The river was quiet, but as he stepped closer to the bank, he stopped. Something large was lying at the edge of the water. It was a body, a woman, but not like any woman he had ever seen. Her legs were long like palm trunks. Her arms stretched far beyond his reach. Her skin glowed softly in the light. Her chest rose and fell. She was alive, but she was too big to be real. Akilo turned and ran. The village gathered quickly. Elders, warriors, children. They came with spears and weapons. No one made a sound when they saw her. She looked fragile despite being so big. They just stared. She was breathing, though weakly. Her clothes were torn. Her hair matted with mud and leaves. She looked like something the gods had dropped by mistake. Some said she was bad luck. Others said that the gods were speaking. But still, they couldn't just leave her there. So they tied ropes to their strongest cart, and two of the most powerful men, Ula and Negero, dragged it to the river. With great effort, they lifted the giant woman onto the cart, her arms dangling off the sides like fallen branches. Slowly, they pulled her back into the village. She was placed inside an old abandoned barn, where the roof was tallest. Guards were posted and food was left near the door. For 2 days, she did not move. Children ran past the barn, screaming. Some cried in their mother's arms, afraid she would rise and trample them. The elders met every night. Some wanted to send her away. Others said she must be protected, for such a being might carry a message from the gods. On the 3rd day, she stood up. She spoke, and to their surprise, she spoke their tongue. She said her name was Noma. She didn't know how she came to the riverbank. Her last memory was of running from the chaos. Her eyes held sorrow. She said her kind once lived in peace and harmony, but over time, greed crept in. The thirst for power grew among leaders. Small disputes turned into battles, and soon, a great war broke out. It raged for many years, burning their lands and burying their people. She may be the last of her kind. She had been hiding, surviving, running. The villagers were shocked. They had never believed the old stories, and now one was standing before them. Life in Langa changed. Some villagers kept their distance. Others grew angry that such a creature lived among them. Children hid behind trees. They feared her footsteps, her voice, her shadow. Even when she bent low to smile, they ran. But not everyone feared her. Akilo began to visit her. He would bring roasted yams. He told her about their ways, their stories, their fears. She listened, and in return, told him more stories of the giants. The children would sometimes sneak close to hear those stories. They didn't run anymore. Still, not all hearts were soft. Some believed her presence would bring destruction. Others felt she didn't belong. One night, someone threw a burning stick at her hut. It didn't catch, but the message was clear. Not all wanted her there. Could a giant woman live among dwarfs? Could peace truly grow between those born so different? No one knew the answer. Many full moons had passed since Noma arrived, the land of dwarfs as a giant. The seasons changed, but she remained. The elders resolved that she could stay. Though some still feared her, however, more and more villagers began to accept her. It was hard not to. She helped in the farms. She would weave giant baskets no one else could weave. With Akilo by her side, things became easier. He was the first to see her as more than a stranger. He walked with her, spoke for her, laughed beside her. People talked behind his back, but he didn't care. He had no family to answer to, no mother to scold him, no brothers to warn him. His mind was set. Then, one morning, as the sun rose behind the tall trees, Akilo stood before the elders and spoke. He said he was going to marry Noma. The village fell silent. A dwarf and a giant? How would that even work? Who had ever heard such a thing? But Akilo's face was strong with decision. He had made up his mind. And the truth was, more villagers smiled than frowned. So the wedding happened. It was the biggest the village had ever seen. Mats were spread under the tallest trees. Clay pots overflowed with roasted yams and sweet roots. Fruits and vegetables were piled high. Children danced. Goats bleated. And even the sky seemed brighter. Noma wore a dress made from many small fabrics stitched together. Akilo stood tall beside her, proud and unshaken. 1 year later, Noma gave birth. The baby was not a dwarf. His name was Akila. And from the first day, he stretched longer than any child born in Langa. His hands were wide, his feet strong. The villagers stared in wonder. He looked just like his mother. 10 years passed. Akilo and Noma had 8 children, 5 girls and 3 boys. 3 of them were dwarfs. The rest grew taller each year, reaching for the sky. At first, it was strange. But by now, Langa had changed. The people were used to Noma and her family. The children played freely, farmed, learned to hunt. Dwarfs and tall ones lived in peace. Until the one day. It was during a hunt. Akila, now 18, went with a group of boys, who were his age mates. They were chasing a rabbit through the bush. The rabbit ran fast. A spear was thrown, and it struck the rabbit just as it darted under a log and fell. Akila reached it first and picked it up. But another boy, a dwarf named Temu, shouted. He said it was his spear that struck the animal, so he demanded the rabbit. Akila refused, and they began to argue and insult each other. The others tried to calm them, but the arguments got louder. Temu pushed Akila and Akila shoved him back. Temu reached for the rabbit again. In a burst of anger, Akila grabbed a rock and struck Temu on the side of the head. Temu fell. At first, they thought he was just hurt, but when they saw the blood gushing out and how still he was, fear gripped their hearts. Temu didn't move again. Akila stepped back, his eyes wide, his hands shaking. He dropped the rock and ran into the thick forest. The others lifted Temu and carried him back to the village. But it was too late. Temu was dead. Word spread fast. From hut to hut, from tree to tree. The son of the giant woman had killed a dwarf. The village was in chaos. By sunset, the elders had gathered, and Akila was still missing. The people stood at the edge of the square, whispering. Was it an accident? Or was it the beginning of something far worse? Could peace truly last between those born so different? The forest was quiet that night, and somewhere in the darkness, Akila was still running.